like hiding. Yeah, yeah. It's always it's always been a thing with me that I don't want to be me, you know. And if you play a character, if you're playing a character that is not Gary, then you will look at the way they walk, or the way they move, or the way they sit, or the way they comb their hair, or you're looking at something out. You're looking for things that are outside of outside of yourself. When I was a young actor in rep, I did very early on in my career. I was in a play. I'm going to forget the author now, but there was a play called Privates on Parade. Do you remember that? I think they made a film of it. Mm-hmm. And it was a entertainment troupe in Korea, in the jungle, entertaining the troops. And there was a scene in it where I was naked, and I had to run on stage, and I was on sentry. And the reason why I was naked, I had boots and a rifle and a jungle hat, but nothing else. And I received a message from my father who said the best way to cure prickly heat is to actually stand in the monsoon rain with no clothes on. And there's this very, very horrific moment that happens, and I run on, and the gag is, of course, I'm on sentry, and and the guy says to me, well, "You're stark naked." So what I would do is go in at 5 o'clock, 4:30, 5 o'clock before the show, and I would do the tan, but I would do areas where the shorts were, and then where the socks were, and where my watch had been, and where the vest, and where the collar was open, so the neck would be slightly redder, and the nose would be slightly redder because it's most exposed to the sun, as opposed to the arms, which would be more tanned, and the hands would be darker than other parts of the body. And of course this was the image I wanted, where I had white, and then I was teased about this, because people would say to me, other actors would say to me, "Oh, Gary, look, it's 2:30 in the afternoon. Shouldn't you be up in the makeup room by now?" But it was always there with me, even as a young actor, looking at very specific detail.
Which is perhaps why, when Peter Chelsom directed you in 2017's The Space Between Us, he told us that he wanted you to play Gary Oldman, and he wanted you to dress like Gary Oldman. He also said you almost had a near panic attack and asked, "Can I at least wear a scarf?" Is that your memory of events? And how challenging was it to get that direction, play somebody like you?
Well, it's Peter's idea of me and what I had done, and you know, a director always wants to get you for the first time doing something, you know, that you've not done with anyone else. I always say, you know, I got him to do that. So he wanted me to look handsome. He said, "I want you to look handsome, darling." You know, and I've gone out of my way to avoid that. I've spent a whole career hiding, so it is a little, it's a little intimidating. He wanted me to be as close to me as I would let him. Yeah.
It's funny how people get ideas of you. It's often said that, "Oh, Gary Oldman, he's played an awful lot of villains." But when you think about it, you actually haven't played that many villains.
No.
It's just that the ones you did play were so memorable, people sort of naturally assume you've played sort of lots of them. So as someone who is so respected for his ability to sort of play the bad guy, is there one general thing that runs through all these villainous characters? How do you embody villainy so well that these performances became so memorable?
Well, it's a puzzle to me, really. I mean, look at me. You know, it's not exactly, you know, I'm not terribly threatening, I hope. I look like a boiled chicken, naked.
There's your soundbite.
You know, I don't know how it's happened. Really, it was, you know, and the things that become memorable or iconic. Half the time, they were just in the moment, by the way, moments. I'm always, people come up to me, and most people are well-meaning. I mean, they're very, very kind, and they have their favourite characters. And of course, Leon, or the professional, is one that comes up a lot. Stansfield. And they love the idea of me, you know, they go, everyone, bring me everyone, you know. And of course, that was a joke that I did one take for a laugh, just to make Luc Besson laugh. And I said to the sound guy, you know, this one's going to be really loud, so, you know, be careful, mind your ears. And then the guy says to me, bring me I say, bring me everyone. And he says, everyone? And I go, everyone. And of course it did make
yes.
Luke laugh. And then of course it was in the film. But it's become such a sort of iconic line. But it was just one take.
And so what did you learn from that, and did that change your performance subsequently? You'd created this hugely operatic, sort of memorable villain with almost like a joke take. So have you looked to do that on other performances since?
No, I wasn't. It's not something that I deliberately was seeking. It is a cartoon. Leon is a cartoon for grown-ups, basically. So some of the villains have been, you know, it is larger than life. And the other film that I did with Luke, which is, of course, The Fifth Element, and that again it's cartoonish. You know, I had to sort of put an end to it because I was becoming typecast and pigeonholed, and I would constantly be offered villains. I mean, a lot of people think that you get offered everything and that you're turning it all down, and that's not the case. And there are a lot of other wonderful actors out there that are being offered parts. But what happened, there was a trend where the roles would come in and they were villainous parts. And at some point you have to, it's a big ship to turn around.
But you need a director brave enough to see you in a different way, don't you? And one way you were able to turn around that typecasting was when Christopher Nolan cast you in his cartoon for grown-ups, the Dark Knight franchise. And when you get a character like James Gordon, who is just essentially good, how challenging is that as a brief? Okay, you're the good guy.
Well, I put them in something like James Gordon. I'd put in the same bag as Potter, Sirius Black. What you have to do is the trick is that you have to make exposition, you have to make plot, character. I think there's a moment in Harry Potter when I'm talking about his father, or when I'm before that wolf attack, we're out somewhere, and it's just story of advancing it's helping you, the audience, and it's just taking a shortcut of explaining Harry and I's relationship, what went before, and but you've got to do it in a couple of minutes. To play Jim was a wonderful experience because he is the best man. He is rock solid, incorruptible Jim Gordon. So that was a great, it was a great opportunity to do it. But you're always coming in behind Batman. You get to a scene of a crime and you don't have much crime solving to do because Batman's done it. He's already there. So you just call it in. And there's a real skill to be able to get a walkie-talkie and go, I need a SWAT team on the roof. It's and somehow you've got to make it. You have to make some of that exposition interesting. That's the one. I tell you, one of the best. We always remember good reviews. We don't remember the good reviews. We do remember the bad ones. And it's not that I sift through and go through them all, but occasionally over the years, you get, nowadays you're looking for something, on the internet, or and something else pops up when you're not even searching for it. But I do remember one reviewer, and it may have been Rolling Stone, who said that Gary Oldman makes virtue look exciting. And that was that's a keeper. That was a good review.
You mentioned the internet there, and I wonder how the rise of the digital age has helped or changed your preparation as an actor. Compared to, say, when you played Lee Harvey Oswald in JFK, it was a very different time then. It's like you couldn't go and watch interviews and footage so easily. You actually had to get on a plane and travel. And now in movies where there seems to be less and less rehearsal time, has the digital rise of the digital age changed the way you prepare characters in any way, shape, or form?
Well, it certainly helped with Winston. That's for sure. I mean, we had access behind the ropes tours of Blenheim Palace and Chartwell and Downing Street and the war rooms, and so we were very privileged to have that. And the so-called sort of scholars and experts and people that have devoted their lives to Churchill were ready to help us. But it makes it a lot easier. My wife Gisela, who is here, was really my sort of visual consultant and was my researcher, and would dig away and find really interesting tiny little pieces of footage online. So it has been made easier, although the days of JFK, Lee Harvey Oswald, were exciting because you felt that when you found a piece of footage or some material on Oswald, you felt like you had really earned it. There was something wonderful about going to a book and then you have a reference and then you go back to the library and then you would have to kind of look it up on microfilm and then you would ask and you would say, I really need that collection of, and they go, yeah, well, we'd have to order that because it's in Oxford, but we could get it here in a week. And then you would wait a week and then you would get the book. And by the time, when I worked on my degree many years ago, you felt that you had really earned it because of the kind of the work and the shoe leather that you put into finding this stuff. And Oliver gave me the greatest gift because there wasn't really a great deal on the page. And he gave me some telephone numbers and contacts. He gave me some plane tickets. And he said, you can, he said, take yourself off to New Orleans and Dallas, and he said, find out who Oswald was. And so you become, you almost become an investigator. You become like a detective. Yeah.
But when you played, soon after that, a fictional character on Dracula, Francis Ford Coppola gave you a coffin. So apart from like sitting in that for a few nights, how did you come up with building such a memorable version of that fictional character?
Imagination.
The greatest thing in an actor's toolbox, right?
Yeah. I mean, at the time, we called it Camp Coppola. Because he had us up in Napa for about 3 or 4 weeks rehearsing. We actually read out loud the book, and it's hard work. It's hard work reading. It's hard work reading that book. But we did all sorts of wonderful improvisations, rehearsals, and he was sending them off to go ballooning and horse riding, and it's true. And I said to him, well, what am I going to do? I said, I'm 300 years old and I'm dead. So it was just really, the script sparked it all. I was working on JFK. I remember when I read the script, I remember reading the script one afternoon in the trailer. And the line that jumped out at me was, I have crossed oceans of time to find you. And I thought, God, it'd be worth doing the movie just to say that, just to say that line. I mean, Dracula was not on my bucket list. It wasn't something that I even thought about. But it came in, and it was Francis Ford Coppola, who is, I mean, arguably he's the greatest American director. I mean, if you look at the work, so it was an opportunity to work with him, and you know, what's he going to do with it? You know, he's obviously he sees something here, so this could be incredibly exciting. And I read the script, which I responded to, and that line. But I heard it in a different voice, and I heard it in a much sort of deeper voice. So I heard the character, but physically couldn't do it. I then had to find a way of achieving it, and you know, voice work and all of that from the theatre, which I brought to it. And I worked with an opera singer, and over 5 months, lowered my voice an octave to be able to play it. I couldn't do it now. I couldn't do the voice now if I tried. I couldn't do Churchill because I've not done it for a year. So and I applied much the same thing. I got a opera singer, a singing teacher, and we worked out Churchill's range on the piano, and then over time, you know, it's a muscle. You just exercise it. Yeah.
I also love that line. I've crossed oceans of time to find you. You were mentioning that when people come up to you, they've always got a favourite performance. But what are some of the lines that get quoted back to you the most times when fans meet you?
Well. Was a television character I played in Alan Clark's The Firm, and occasionally I do get lorry drivers and people and cab drivers shouting out, "All right, Bexley!"
Yeah.
So
Bex Bissell, the football hooligan, and
yes, lovely chap. Yes.
Yeah. Now, as a Millwall fan growing up, I presume you'd met a lot of football hooligans that could inspire that performance.
I had met a few. Yeah. That were dangerous times. Really, you took your life in your hands when you went to those matches. Yeah, it wasn't seated like it is now, not stadium seating. It was terraces. My mum just let me go.
I'm glad you made it out alive, Gary.
He's 8 years old, and off he goes, standing in amongst the hooligans. Yes.
You were telling me outside that something you and Daniel Day-Lewis have in common is both being Millwall fans. I mean, when you meet, do you ever talk about the Lions and their form?
In fact, I've only met Daniel once at a, it was the, you know, the pre-Oscar Katzenberg party.
Oh, right, yes. Not that I've ever been invited, but I know about it. Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes, yes.
Yes, you should try it.
Oh, thank you. you got a +1 this year, Gary.
Well, when you get invited to the Katzenberg party, you go, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, have I made it?
Yes. Yes.
You get invited through the curtain into the front cabin, and because before that you just hear the champagne being uncorked. You know. Met Dan. Yes, where was I? I met Dan. I met Dan and said to him, this was just before Lincoln, the night he won the Oscar, and I, you know, I'm sure many of us here did. I said, "Nice to meet you." I said, "You're going to win the Oscar tomorrow." And then we talked very briefly about Millwall.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are. It's south. We are both southeast London boys. But there are tracks, and he was on one side and I was on the other. But I've only met him. I've only met him the once, and he was charming. He was delightful, and I had looked forward to the opportunity of working with him. But if he's good to his word, he's done. Yeah.
I hope you're not going to be done for any time soon. There's no retirement plans for you, I hope, Gary.
No, but I can see it. It's on the horizon. Yeah, I can, you know, get down to some other things, you know, but no plans yet.
We were just talking about the interaction with fans, and I imagine for years you've had sort of acting students and actors themselves worship you. But when you did the Harry Potter franchise, perhaps for the first time, you had children discovering your talent. What were those encounters like? How delightful were they, and how different?
Fantastic. I mean, really, to be asked to be involved with the phenomenon. I mean, it is a cinematic phenomenon. There's going to be nothing like it will ever follow it. And there was nothing like it before or since. It is a unique experience. 10 years where we were a family and watching the kids grow up and then seeing them have the chops to really tackle those later books that are darker and more complex. Was an extraordinary thing to think that they got each time they got the whole cast back. It was a really lovely experience. It is interesting working with kids because a great deal of the time it's really 4 hours of acting over a 12-hour day because they have to go off to school. And it doesn't matter if you're on a roll and you're in a scene, once the school time comes around, they've gone, you know? Most of you probably have seen a Harry Potter movie. There's you know, Scabbers, the rat. Ron's rat. He has a break every 15 minutes.
Well, the rats have got great union, I understand.
Every time, eventually, we got stopped now, and they get the rat, and they say he needs a rest because he's got to have a rest every 15 minutes. I said to the AD, I said, "Who's his agent?" I want to put that in my contract. So you would have to stop for the kids. You'd have to stop for the animals. Yeah. It was an interesting interesting process. And at one point, I think Alfonso Cuarón directed himself into a corner. The thing that I loved about Alfonso was that he felt that he didn't have to justify his position. He didn't have to stand there every time and say, I know it all. I've got it all planned, and I know exactly what I'm doing at every given moment. And the great thing was we were like, I think 13 people in a room that was moving as well. It was on hydraulics. And we were in the scene, and he had some, I mean, Tim Spall, and he had the kids, and he had Alan Rickman, God bless him, David Thewlis, and there were so many eye lines that by the end he didn't know if he was coming or going. And he just sort of almost, he directed himself into a corner, and he said, hang on a minute, guys. So Ron's looking that way, and then she looks at him, but then they're looking at Sirius. But Sirius, so you're looking at him. So I've got to come over there, and then I've got to come back here, and I've got to, you know, because of all this thing of crossing the line and the eye lines working out. I loved him that day. You know what I mean? He's a really lovely man and a brilliant director, a real artist. He's the real McCoy, Alfonso. But God, I loved him that day because he just scratched his head and just said, I don't know what I'm doing. It's nice to hear sometimes, you know.
And you can relate as a fellow director. BAFTA awarded you for Nil by Mouth, you know, a very important, very memorable movie. How, looking back on it now, how pleased are you with what you achieved with that movie?
Well, it was a little movie that I had made, which was an experiment more than anything else, and I never really cared if it was seen outside of the UK. I didn't make it for America or Canada or, you know, it was very colloquial, very specific to a neighbourhood, and I did not want to compromise. And I made it in a bubble, really. But it was just this small film, all in 4 million, and it became this very successful, British in Britain, became a very successful film, and I won the Best Original Screenplay, BAFTA, and the Best British Film. I'm so proud of those. You know, it was that particularly was a great evening. Looking back, I wish I'd done something with my hair. but it was a memorable night. That's the thing. It just all comes back to you, doesn't it? Those photographs you can never get away from them.
Yeah, that's the curse of the internet. Never mind the benefits. They're always there.
It really is the curse. That old thing of yesterday. What was it? Yesterday. It'll be tomorrow's fish and chip paper. No more. No more. That's what we used to say. But it was a wonderful achievement. I loved every moment of it, and really thought, this is it for me. This is what it's going to be. That I will act less and be a filmmaker. But it just hasn't worked out that way. There've been other scripts that I've tried to get off the ground. I have one at the moment. It's about 6 years old, and we're going to go back out with that again. I will do it again, but
do you think it's, given your position in the industry at this point, it might be easier to get things made, financed, greenlit than it maybe was just a few years ago?
Well, I think what happens is I'm enjoying a moment in the sun, and they come and they go, and you go back into the shade. You know, careers are. It's been. Oh, I've had a tremendous career by anyone's standards, But there have been highs and there have been lows, and some lean times and some good times, and so this I'm very blessed at the moment with this moment and this role and this film. We're over the 100 million mark. Can you believe it?
Yeah.
Nearly. They put a floor, I think, on this movie at like 28 million domestically. I think we're going to hit 60. So it's been that is extraordinary that people are it gives you faith too, that this is not screeners. This is people actually going out to the cinema and buying tickets. So it gives me great hope for movies.
Cinema's obituary has been written again and again, and in this age of streaming, we've seen that a quality adult drama can find a large audience. So, do you think the big screen will ever die?
I honestly and truly, I can't. I mean, I never thought I'd see the end of celluloid in my lifetime, and it's pretty much extinct. Apart from some people that have the clout to still shoot in 35mm. So it's a hard one. I can't see it happening. I am a huge fan of long form TV, and some of the lighting, camera lighting, set design. I've just started watching The Alienist, and you look at the production value in that. It's extraordinary. Those sets, the camera work, the lighting, the acting, the costumes, and so you're seeing on TV some of the best writing, some of the best acting, some of the best, and there is no stigma anymore. It used to be, a television actor and a movie actor, and then that other thing, the theatre. And now it's open game for everybody, and I am watching incredible performances on my small screen. But there is something about the collective experience of going to a room together, and then the lights go down, and that is, if that were to die out, that to be replaced, then I think that would be a very sad day. I mean, people do watch movies on their iPhones. I don't know how, but no, I think the theatre, the cinema experience it's got to be here to stay, and and then my young son, who's back there, Gully, he's 19, 20. He's I don't know what he's got to do, but you got to keep it alive, baby. He's a big fan of movies. He goes to the movies. Good. And is not someone who just watch TV.
As we've heard over the last hour, technology changes, viewing platforms change, but something that's really eternal is these performances that you've talked about tonight that will really last. We're so proud of you at BAFTA for all you've achieved. I'm interested to know how you reflect on your journey from, a South London aspiring actor to here you are at the summit in Hollywood. In conclusion, how does it feel?
Oh, it feels grand.
Thank you, Gary Oldman.